Hi everyone, my name is Jen. I'm an author and a book reviewer, and I haven't been in a reading slump, but I was very sick for about a month and I didn't read anything. And I don't know about you, but when I get out of the habit of reading, even when I want to be reading, I find that I kind of have to reset myself, retrain myself to get back into the reading routine. So I thought I would start a new reading vlog today, and in this vlog I thought I would read not as many short books as I can because it's not a challenge, but I've pulled 10 of some of the shortest books from my shelves, and I thought, yes, I'll get through as many as I can in the next 10 or so days, but not as in I'm going to stress about it. I'm just going to see how many I can get to in the next little while. So that's what this reading vlog is. I would love you to join me. I will be talking about these books as I read them, and then as usual, if you're familiar with my channel, I'll be inserting some cooking and walking footage here and there as well. So what I'm going to do right now is just show you the 10 books that I'm planning on choosing my reading from. I'm not going to talk you through the blurbs because I'll be talking about them throughout the video and you don't need to hear me talk about them twice. But let me just show you the books that I have chosen. I was going to say pretty much at random, it is by size, but I didn't think too much about it. I just grabbed the ones that looked the shortest. So we've got Comfort Me with Apples by Catherynne and Valente, Cold Enough for Snow by Jessica Au, The Pulse Between Dimensions and the Desert by Rios, The President's Room by Ricardo, Romero, Bear by Marian, Engel, The Black God's Drums by Djeli Clark, Oddfellow's Orphanage by Emily Winfield Martin, A Postcard for Annie by Jessen, or Jessen I think actually, The Factory by Hiroko Oyamada, and They by K. Dick. So those are 10 books. I think they're all under 150 pages. One of them is short stories, the rest I'm pretty sure are novels. I discounted poetry collections, not because I don't love poetry, you know I adore poetry, but because otherwise all 10 would be poetry collections if I did it specifically and only by size. So I'm going to save poetry for another day. These are the books that I'm going to be reading from over the next 10 days. I will check in with you when I have things to report. And I think I'm going to make some pizza. So insert footage of that here. Okay folks, so I've read 2 books and we already have like very different things going on. So first off, I picked up Cold Enough for Snow by Jessica Au. I know that I whizzed through the titles in the previous segment, but I will actually talk to you about them properly as we go, don't worry. So this, I think is one of my favourite books of the year. And as I am filming this segment, I know that by the time this vlog goes out, my favourite books of the year video will already have gone live. So you will already have heard me talk about this book. If you haven't seen that video that future me hasn't filmed yet, I will link it in the description box down below. But essentially, it's a novel about a mother and daughter who decide they're going to meet in Tokyo to reunite. It's kind of neutral ground for them. It's autumn time. The descriptions of Japanese gardens and Japanese food, exquisite. The thing that I love most about this is all of the small moments between two family members who know each other very well, but at the same time are terrible at communicating. So there's this gap between them and they dance around it every single day. Like they can't seem to get closer to each other, and they've almost swapped roles. The daughter is telling the mum what to do and taking her to all of these places and trying to organize everything. And the mum's a bit like a moody teenager. She doesn't enjoy that her daughter has grown up and become an adult, I suppose. Maybe she's lost her role in this relationship and she's feeling a bit lost. I don't know. It's a very delicate novel. It's under 100 pages and I just thought that it was fantastic. So big recommendation from me. Now this is The Bear by Marian Engel, and I bought this. It was a novel in the 70s that was banned in Canada. It's about a woman who falls in love with and is sexually attracted to a bear, and I just thought that premise sounded absurd. It has great blurbs on here too, but I just didn't like this at all. I thought that it was quite boring. I just found it really dull. How can you make something like this that dull? I found myself wanting to skim. I just wasn't engaged at all. The writing style, not for me. So I'm going to pass this one on to someone else. And yeah, I'm disappointed. I really thought that one was going to be a great one for me. Okay, I'm going to crack on and read something else. Not right this second because it's my lunch break and I need to get back to work. But when I have read something, I will come back and report back to you. In the meantime, tomorrow, Mr. M and I are going to walk over to Fenton House, which is in Hampstead. It's a National Trust place, and we have National Trust membership, which was gifted to us when we got married, which was extremely kind. But there aren't that many places in London that you can go to. But we're going to go check out the gardens because they look amazing. So I'm excited about that. I think it's going to rain, but I'm also excited about that too because that should mean it will cool down a bit. So I will film some of that and I will show you the garden, which I believe has a 300-year-old orchard with 30 different varieties of apples inside. And it just looks very lovely from the pictures I have seen. So I will insert that here and I will come back to you to talk about books when I have things to say. The gardens at Fenton House were really beautiful. I would very much recommend them. They're only open on Fridays and Sundays. I'll link it in the description box down below. It's actually a couple of weeks later now because I've been on book deadline, and that has meant that I haven't been reading very much at all, but that book is now handed to my editor and I can breathe a little bit and get on with other areas of work. So you should, touch wood, be getting 2 new books from me next year in 2023, which I'm very excited about, and I'll talk to you about those when I can in the future. So while I've been away, my head has very much been buried in that book, but I've also been making some yummy food as a distraction to myself, and I have put some of those recipes up on Instagram if you're interested. One, a pavlova, which is quite a basic recipe, but it includes the key to unlocking the perfect pavlova, like the ratio that you need so that you can upscale or downscale however much you would like. And then I also discovered a recipe for raspberry and white chocolate cookies, and I'm not a huge fan of white chocolate, but I was tempted by this because I thought the raspberries would offset it beautifully, and they did. They were delicious. I will link that in the description box down below as well. Mr. M and I went for a very nice walk last weekend, which I will show you in a second, but we are here to talk about books. And I seem to be setting a trend in this video of reading 2 books, loving one, or at least really, really liking one, and really not liking the other one, and that trend has continued. So the one that I really enjoyed in this particular batch was The Pulse Between Dimensions and the Desert by Rios. Now, I read her book Itza earlier this year and really, really enjoyed it. That was a novella about a series of water witches in Mexico. It was about intergenerational trauma and magic and sisterhood, and I just really like the experimental nature of that novella, so I was keen to read more of her work, and this is a short story collection. This came before Itza, and reading this I really liked seeing how her writing has developed, which is not to say that this isn't good, but I mean I could see flashes of ideas that she had in here that she had expanded upon in Itza, so it was fun to see those seeds. The way that she writes about colour is kinetic, like everything just feels as though it's moving in a really pleasing way. So let me read a little quote to you. During recess, I lugged the classroom's bucket of crayons, colour pencils and markers with me. The class played kickball and I sat under the shade of a Palo Verde tree because of my asthma. I arranged all the greens together, the blues together and reds together. I continued until they were all in front of me in their chromatic families. Red represented anger. Pink meant passion. Blue mirrored the bodies of water on the planet. Greens expressed curiosity. Yellows owned the sun. Naranjas represented astronauts with Martian dust on their boots. Brown was my favourite. Brown represented the people I interacted with every single day. My grandma, my little sister, all the people gathered downtown waiting for the bus. In a floppy notepad, I wrote the name of every colour down. Her writing is the kind of writing that I remember as a feeling rather than the specifics of plot, especially with this, because a lot of these are flash fiction as well, so they're very quick, they're like little fireworks, and I appreciated them very much. So that was the one I enjoyed in this batch. And then the one I didn't enjoy was this, which is The Factory by Hiroko Oyamada, and this is translated from the Japanese by David Boyd. I had bought this because I had fallen in love with the TV show Severance, which is not based on the book by Ling Ma. It's a completely different concept, but it is about work and separating yourself, or not being able to separate yourself from work life, but using science fiction and dystopia to explore that. And I found it so unsettling and so fantastic. If you haven't watched it, it's on Apple TV. I love it. The last episode of the first season is one of the most tense hours of TV I think I've ever watched. Anyway, I adored it. Then I saw this, which is The Factory, which is about 3 different people who work in a factory. One shreds paper, one studies documents, and one studies moss. And it's about how their relationship with their work affects the way that they see the world, and then suddenly the factory blends into their everyday life. They're not sure where their house begins and where the factory begins, and there are strange animals. Basically, the concept sounds wonderful. Even describing the concept to you again makes me want to read this book, even though I've tried to read it and I gave up because I found it really clumsy. Some of that I think is to do with the formatting. So it looks like this. This is a series of blocks of people talking. They do not start a new line when a new person starts speaking, and I don't know if it was this way in the original. I assume maybe so. Maybe it's making a point about everything blurring together and life being confusing, but I did not enjoy that. It made it really laborious to read, and then each chapter switches between characters, but there's no indication of which character we're going to join, so you just have to keep reading to find a particular marker and then realise, okay, I'm with that character now. I also just found it a little bit dull. And again, it's hard to know if that was deliberate because it's talking about being bored in your life. But even if it was deliberate, that didn't translate well on the page because you don't really want to make your reader feel very frustrated with the book that they're reading. I had hoped that I would enjoy this more than a book that I read with a slightly similar premise, which was also a novel in translation from Japan last year called There's No Such Thing as an Easy Job. But actually I ended up liking that one more because at least I finished that one. But ultimately both were quite disappointing, so that is a shame. Anyway, we have other books to be getting on with, and maybe I will find others in this TBR pile that I end up really enjoying. As I mentioned, last weekend Mr. M and I went on a very nice walk. We walked to Hampstead Heath, which we do quite regularly. It's an hour's walk from us, and then we also walked around Hampstead Gardens suburbs. And something that we've been enjoying recently is watching Joolz Guides. He has quite a big YouTube channel. I think it's 300,000 subscribers or something, so you may already know him, but he does walking tours of London, and some things I'd heard of before, some things I hadn't. It's kind of fun to watch him walk around areas that you know a lot, but what I've enjoyed is him pointing out things that you can find all over London, things like stink pipes and certain markers on the streets which will denote how old they are, things you can look out for on houses like fire insurance plaques. I don't know, I have really enjoyed watching his videos and he's very fun. So I'll link his channel in the description box down below. So when we were walking last weekend, we were looking out for, in Hampstead, there are these bollards called the cannon bollards. It's in Cannon Place even, which have little cannons on top. So that was rather fun. I enjoyed it. So here is a clip of that walk, and I will come back to you when I've read some more. Okay, it's now too hot for wigs, but I did put this headscarf in the freezer before putting it on this morning, which was rather delightful. All right, I've read 2 more books and they happen to match each other colour-wise, and I am still carrying on this really enjoying one and not enjoying the other track. I don't know what is with that. You have a second to guess which one I loved and which one I didn't. this is the one that I didn't love. So this is Oddfellow's Orphanage by Emily Winfield Martin. This was a case of tone for me, so I really enjoyed the premise, which is about a group of children in an orphanage. One is a hedgehog, one has an onion head, one is a princess who likes stars, but it's just a bit too cute for me. It didn't have enough bite. I know that it's aimed at children, I know that, but if you've read any of my own children's books, you know that I do prefer the darker side of children's literature. So yeah, this was a little bit too nice for me. I think that maybe says more about me than the book. So if you like really wholesome things, I mean, I like the Tea Dragon Society and things like that, but this was a bit too far, I think, for me. Personal taste thing, as with anything bookish. But the one that I did really enjoy was The President's Room by Ricardo Romero, which is translated from the Spanish by Charlotte Coombe. Ricardo Romero is an Argentinian writer, and this is set in a world where everybody has a room in their house for the president. No one talks about why they have it. It's just in case he or she wants to come to visit. And the narrator in this book is really intrigued by what goes on in that room, and he spends a lot of time peering inside it from a tree outside their house that he climbs up and sits in. It's a very odd book, and I loved it for that. It doesn't really offer any answers. In fact, the beginning felt a little bit Piranesi-esque, not full-on fantastical like that, but that weird geometry, world building going on. You know, is this a real room? Do we live in a different kind of world where the rules are different? What is going on? It's just all shrouded in mystery, just all quite unsettling. At one point, the house feels as though it is the narrator's body because he has a fever. He says, the fever is in my skin and it's multiplying. Skin, my skin. When I have a fever, I can feel my skin, it feels right, and then I wonder, does my skin always belong to me, or is it part of what's in the air, what's outside and around me? It's like the walls, adjoining walls. It hurts me to think about, and it hurts me not knowing which house a wall belongs to, and the whole city's like that, full of walls that belong to two houses at once. My temperature soars, my skin is burning, I touch my face and the skin of my face doesn't recognise the skin of my hands. My skin is a wall and I don't know what's on one side and what's on the other. It's all about boundaries of mind and body and of individual and collective, and it's told in a series of vignettes. It does almost feel dreamlike and fever-like, even when the narrator doesn't have a fever, and it's set in a nameless place. It reminded me a little bit of Italo Calvino. I just really enjoyed how surreal it was, and I think I'm going to be thinking about it for quite a long time. If you're someone who enjoys reading odd things that don't have answers at the end, then I would encourage you to pick this up. If you're someone who likes your plot to go to a very definite place, then this book is probably not for you. I'll check back in with you soon. Sorry if you can hear construction work. There's quite a lot going on our street at the moment. I think this is going to be my final update for two reasons. One, it is supremely hot, which you don't need me to talk about because, well, you don't. But if anyone watching has a disability or a chronic illness, which means that their body can't regulate its temperature like me, I did put up a post with some advice of things that I find particularly helpful when trying not to pass out, some of which are obvious, some of which may not be, but I'll link that in the description box down below if you are interested. So because it's really hot, I just don't envisage myself reading loads of books this week because it makes my brain very tired, and after work it's done. And also, what was the other reason? Oh, because I started this vlog because also you may be able to hear my feet in a bowl of cold water if you can. That's what that noise is. that's one of the tips. Have your feet in a bowl of cold water whenever possible. I started this vlog because I was in a bit of a reading funk, and I thought reading lots of short books would get me in the mood for reading longer books, and that has succeeded. And now I am itching to read longer books, particularly crime, because I guess they're very plot heavy, and that's maybe the next step on getting me back on the reading track. So I feel like this vlog has served its purpose. So I'm going to shelve the 3 books that I didn't get round to reading this time, which were They by K. Dick, which is a dystopian written, I think I'm getting this right, by George Orwell's editor, and it's been reissued. I think the publishers thought it was lost and then they refound it. There was Comfort Me With Apples by Catherynne and Valente, which I think is biblical or a Bluebeard retelling. That's kind of the gist I'm getting both from the blurb and the title, because the title is a Bible reference. And then what was the third one that I hadn't read? Oh, it was by Djeli Clark, which was called The God's Drums. I read Ring Shout by him earlier this year and really loved it. So that can go back on my shelf for another time too. But for now, I have started reading this, and I'll continue reading it throughout the month. And I will check in with you in a wrap up about it. But this is A Postcard for Annie by Ida Jessen, and it's translated from the Danish by Martin Aitken. I've read the first story in this collection, and there are 6 in total. So they're quite long short stories, or this is just a shortish book. It's hard to tell because the pages aren't a regular size, but I am really enjoying it. It's one of these books that has been translated so well that it is seamless. Sometimes you read translated books and you get distracted by maybe strange phrasing on occasion or something not quite making sense, and it's hard to know if that is the book in its original language or, excuse me, if that's a problem with the translation. But this one feels really, really seamless. And the first story is about a woman. At the very beginning, she's left her house and she's left this bag of herring on the kitchen cabinet. She'd written a note for her husband telling him where she was going, and then at the last minute she decided to scrumple up this note and throw it away. She's not even going to leave him a note. So she goes out and she's trying to find this feeling of freedom, so goes out to do things that she thinks will make her feel better, and then we discover whether or not that is the case. And then we also look back at different points in her life as well. And what was particularly fun for me is the imagery, because she and her husband collect antiques, but they do it very differently. He always criticizes her because she'll just buy things that she likes the look of, whereas he will take several months to really ponder over a purchase. And if he decides at the last minute it's overpriced, he just won't buy it. And she doesn't understand this almost snideness that he has looking at and examining objects, whereas she just appreciates them. And obviously this is a metaphor for their relationship, because he's very judgmental of her, whereas she tries to find the joy in lots of things and he seems to want to stifle it. And that kind of imagery could be heavy-handed, you know, she's an object, he has purchased her, but it felt more subtle than that. And something that I found extra pleasing was that at various points throughout the short story, which I don't mind saying because it's a short story and there are lots of others in the book and I'm not going to spoil the whole short story, but just this little bit is that we were told at the beginning that she hadn't left a letter. And then there's another part of the story where she's reflecting on not leaving a letter, and you think it's the same circumstance, but then you realise it's something that she's done before. So I really liked the time frame and the time jumps in this short story, because I thought it was quite playful and played with readers' expectations. I would also say that the writing style is quite like Sarah Moss, so I would recommend it for that. This is a book in translation, and August is Women in Translation Month, and I will link Kendra, my brain isn't working, Matthew and Jen's channels in the description box down below, because they run that readathon, and I may make a video recommending books by women in translation and books that are on my TBR if you would like me to do that. I have done that in the past, but I think not for a couple of years, so I may still do that. So that is the end of this video. I would love to know how you are and what you have been reading, whether you have read any of these books that I have talked about in this video, or if you would like to pick them up now that I have talked about them. If you're new to my channel and would like to subscribe, that would be lovely. And if you enjoy my content and would like to consider supporting me on Patreon, that would also be very kind. Link to that is in the description box down below. I hope you're all doing okay. I would say I'm sending hugs, but I'm not, because, you know, who wants to touch each other in this heat? No, thank you. So yeah, stay hydrated. I love you very much. Goodbye.